Hey guys, welcome back to Trust Me, It's Worth It. If you haven't already, follow us on Spotify or Twitter at Trust Me It's Worth It Podcast, and also at Instagram with the exact same tag. So, let's start this week. Childhood cartoons. I've been looking forward to this week for a while.
Yeah, I'm quite excited for this one actually because I've got a couple of... Well, this one I think is a pretty rogue choice for me, even though I think it's one of the best Disney films ever made. I don't think many people agree with me on this, so it's pretty controversial.
I know, I think they're both pretty rogue, so I'll go first. I am going to make you watch a film that came out when I was 2, so in 1998.
You're showing how young you are.
I'm showing how young I am there, which is The Magic Sword, Quest for Camelot. I loved this. I used to watch it with my brother.
I've literally never heard of it.
So good.
I mean, to counter that, I'll just mention, I've chosen something kind of similar, which is legitimately my favourite Disney film, The Black Cauldron, which is the Disney film that almost banged onto Disney Animation, I believe.
Why, was it that bad?
It was considered very unpopular. And the reason I'll talk about later, but I think it's because it was for boys and not for girls.
So you're not really selling it to me. I will go first. So, The Magic Sword, Quest for Camelot.
Anything that's got a colon subtitle always concerns me.
Yeah, I think it's because the original title was Quest for Camelot, and then they changed it to add in The Magic Sword. Yeah.
It sounds more like they wanted to make a Magic Sword franchise, and this was going to be the first one. So it was Magic Sword, The Quest for Camelot, then Magic Sword, Return to Camelot, then Magic Sword 3.
I'm going to read you the top line that is on IMDb, because I feel it tells the whole story in one. And I love it.
That's worrying to me.
Yeah.
Is it like when a trailer tells you everything about the film?
But not as bad. So it says, an adventurous girl, a young blind hermit, and a goofy two-headed dragon race to find the lost sword Excalibur to save King Arthur and Camelot from disaster.
I mean, actually, to be fair, a 7-year-old me, apart from the goofy two-headed dragon, I'd be all behind that. Why not just make him not goofy and not two-headed? And just a dragon, and
because
I'd be much
more over that.
Because
Because it works so well for the character development.
I mean, that's clearly the comedic part.
I'll give you the opening, if you will, because I think you're like some of the maybe magic mechanicalism, if that's the right word in it. So it's about, obviously, Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. They all go to Camelot. They're all dividing up their land. And one of them doesn't like the fact he's not getting as much land, so he tries to kill the king and thinks there should be a new king.
Yeah.
Him. They all try and protect the king, and one of the knights dies. And then they go back and his daughter has to grow up without him. There's a lovely song about it called, I think it's like Fly on My Father's
musical.
Oh, it's musical. It's Disney.
Oh, God. See, this is why Black Cauldron is a great film. It's a Disney cartoon, and it's not a musical, and it's great. There's no need to just jam a song in there every now and again.
Well, we've already heard your issues of musicals, and if you haven't, episode 2, Misfits vs. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, listen to the rant there. Yes, it is a musical. I think maybe you'll find the songs grating at times, but I think you'll find the overall thing quite funny. It's a classic quest. We already spoke about this last week, about having really amazing characters in films and TV series that are disabled.
And the guy's blind.
One of the main protagonists is blind, and he's really cool. Like, he feels everything, and he has this like bird essentially tells him by making a noise when to like hit or when to move.
That's kind of cool. That's a cool idea. I like that.
Which is a really cool relationship. The bird is called Aiden. It's a silver-winged falcon.
That's very cool. A silver-winged falcon.
Silver-winged falcon. It is the coolest. But there's a lot of cool animals in it. There's a griffin. So I think you'll enjoy the mystical.
Okay, so it's proper just like, is it like high fantasy Knights of the Round Table, but like big old dragons and wizards and things?
Yeah, I'd say it's that. It's what you kind of try and force me to read at times. It's dragons, it's wizards, it's swords, it's battles, but there's a little bit of magic in there as well.
Sounds good.
And there's a song or two.
The song or two is what's concerning me. But do you know what? I've actually got high hopes for that. Like, that pitch isn't a bad pitch. It sounds quite similar to The Black Cauldron.
Tell me The Black Cauldron.
Black Cauldron is the best Disney film ever made, and it's an obscure one that most people probably haven't heard of. It came out in 1985.
Oh my goodness.
So it's kind of old, but it's one that I watched growing up a lot, and the main character is Ginger, so maybe that's a key part of it.
You relate to him,
I do relate to him. But I think the real reason this film is so great to me, anyway, it was the only film that was clearly made for a more male-skewed young audience. Like, every time my sister would watch The Little Mermaid, I'd just think Ursula was the coolest character because there weren't any other cool people in it, and I didn't really enjoy it. I mean, maybe Sebastian the crab.
You're that person that roots for the burglars in Home Alone, aren't you?
Absolutely, that little shit needs his comeuppance. But all the best character, Donald Trump.
You root for the hunter in Bambi, don't you?
I mean, no, I'm not going that far. You know, Bambi's mum dying is very sad. But anyway, the Black Cauldron. It's a story about. Do you know what? Actually, it kind of reminds me of Star Wars. Now I'm thinking about it. It's about a young farm boy who's got a magic pig that can like locate. I can't remember exactly. Can it see the future? It can locate mystical items. Anyway, it can do something. It's got magic powers, and everyone wants this magic pig. And everyone's looking for this artifact called the Black Cauldron, and the main baddie is like the big skeleton king. And he's literally so spooky to look at. He's a proper villain. And his goal is to summon an evil skeleton army. He's got an army of the dead that he wants to resurrect using the Black Cauldron. He's to sacrifice someone to do it. It's proper high fantasy. Evil skeleton lords, hordes of goblins and stuff, dragons.
So his goal is to take over the world. That's it.
I don't know. He's just evil. He's just generic evil. It is a kid's thing.
Does he have a name?
I can't remember. It's like I will. Hang on. Let me think. The best way of me remembering is there's a little green goblin dude in it that's like, "Sire, sire, let me." And he's always the Goblin King's always choking him out, and he's always like, "No, sire, let me do it myself."
The Horned King is his name. He's played by John Hurt, actually.
So the Horned
that intrigues
King,
me.
That makes it sound weirder than I remember it being. He's an evil skeleton lord. He's pretty spooky looking. And it's just about the young boy Tarwin finding Princess Alonwin. I have to admit, the voice acting is pretty bad. Is the one downside, I would say. Like, I watched it relatively recently as an adult, and the voices aren't great. They're quite clearly Americans trying to put on English accents because, you know, it's high fantasy, it's got to be set in England.
Of course. I mean, I'm just reading again the top line from IMDb.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Do you want to read this out or shall I?
A young boy and a bunch of misfit friends embark on a quest to find a dark magic item of ultimate power before a diabolical tyrant can.
Well, if that just doesn't say magic, I don't know what
That's
does.
great.
I like it. Misfit friends.
Also, I think this film has one of the best comic relief characters. Often comic relief characters are really irritating in Disney films, aren't they? They're just like some squawking little bird that's
like the chicken in Moana.
Yeah, something like that, like the chicken in Moana. That doesn't really play much of a role. Whereas the comedic character, the comic relief in this film, well, there's quite a few comic relief characters. The main one is this little, I don't even know, he's like a gremlin, like a Gizmo from the Gremlins. He's cute.
I've not
called
seen
Gurgi.
Gremlins.
Well, we're going to watch the Gremlins at some point, but he's this cute little fluffy creature that's a bit like a combination of a little old man, but also like a fluffy little creature. Gurgi.
Gurgi.
I
mean, this is sounding familiar. I feel like I watched this as a child, maybe, but like I don't remember it that well.
Gurgi actually plays in the plot. He's not just comic relief. So.
And what about the pig? Does this pig play any part? Or is he literally...
the pig is like, well, the pig is kind of like the MacGuffin that everyone's after, but Tarwin is tasked with caring for the pig. Henwig, I think the pig's called. The way I'm remembering all the names is just trying to remember how weird the voice had to say, like, Princess Alonwin, how are you doing today?
I'm just going to put that. So if we were to put these side by side, right, because they're more or less the same. Mine is a quest for a sword to save all of Camelot.
Yeah.
Yours is the quest for a pig to save a pot.
So it's much more advanced. You see, this is the thing, right? Mine's significantly more advanced because the sword, Excalibur, is pretty much in this film anyway. There's witches, which are clearly based on like the Greek 3 women that cut the strands, you know, to send people to the underworld.
Like that Hercules.
Like the Fates, or I've forgotten. Is that what they're called? Yeah, exactly. And the cauldron is a vessel of like pure evil that has all these magical powers that aren't fully explored, and I wish they'd done a sequel. Maybe we could have found out more. The pig's got powers that can see the future and stuff. There's the evil skeleton king, you can resurrect the dead. There's just an army of the dead chilling. There's goblins. There's a little ball of light that tells people where to go. Feels a bit video gamey, actually, now that I'm saying it. Like,
that sounds
little orb that
So is that why
people.
you liked it as a kid? Because you and your sister could watch it together? Because admittedly, whenever I go back to it, you and your sister quote it a lot to you.
Yeah.
What does she call you?
She calls me Piggy, because there's a little pig in it, Henwig, that Gurgi is always Gurgi see Piggy. Like, that's why my sister calls me Pig and Piglet, because of this film. It feels, you know how Digimon was very clearly created, well, it was created, Digimon was created as a Tamagotchi. It was made by the same people that made Tamagotchi.
Oh, yeah.
And it was made as like a boy's version of Tamagotchi, so it was the same principle of raising digital pets, but like with more guns and more knives.
I cried
and
every
edges.
time my Tamagotchi died.
Exactly, but if you had a boy Tamagotchi with more guns and knives and dragons and dinosaurs...
so if it died an honourable death and not just because I forgot to feed it or made it bounce a ball at its head one too many times.
Exactly, why weren't you fighting other digital dinosaurs? Like that's the real question you got to ask yourself.
I just had babies and they died and I cried.
To summarise that, the reason it was so good for me as a child was it was one of the few Disney films that took the time to embrace proper high fantasy. It took risks. It's quite dark. It's quite spooky for a kid's thing. It's genuinely like a proper quest storyline. There's a lot that happens across the runtime, and I just think, like I say, it's not musical, and it's not got a print. It's not well. There is a princess in it, but it's not a princess-centric.
Is she badass?
Show. Not really. She's not like totally damsel in distress. She's kind of probably more capable than the main character in many respects, but he sort of fumbles his way through everything.
Like you then.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I relate to, you know. Just bumbles along.
When they make the live action version, it's going to be you.
Oh my god, that'd be my dream role. I mean, it would be absolutely panned, I'm sure. I'd be like Tommy Wiseau, you know, like Create the Room. People would be writing books about how mad this film was, that was it.
Well, let's try it then, guys. We'll be back after we've watched The Amazing Magic Sword and the interesting Black Cauldron. Welcome back, guys. Oh, cartoon week, going strong. And I'll go first because we just finished watching The Black Cauldron.
What did you think?
It was very dark. Like, it was the darkest Disney film I think I have ever seen. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about in that because it opens up. It's a great opening. It's like mystical. It tells you the backstory of the cauldron.
Yeah, I feel like it's really from that lineage of fantasy things where it's like you've got to set the scene, and it does feel proper fairy tale of like once upon a time this happened, but it's not a once upon a time there was a like mad fairy or something. Although there are fairies in this, it was like there was an evil cauldron with the spirit of an evil person in it, and if anyone gets hold of it, you can do great evil with it and summon an army of the dead.
I don't feel like the cauldron itself was evil. It just depends who possesses the cauldron.
Yeah, they say something about whose like soul is inside the cauldron.
The king.
Though. Wasn't an evil king there?
I don't think so.
I don't know, maybe it wasn't.
I want to talk about it because that thread carries on throughout, and it is, as I say, one of the creepiest Disney films I've seen. Like, you actually see blood in it. I
noticed that as well.
There's any Disney film I've seen that has blood. Like, he cuts his lip and you see a bit of blood, and then the pig gets essentially tortured.
They're about to torture
They're about to torture the pig.
And they put its head on a chopping block that's clearly been used for a human because it's like cut out for a human.
Blood.
And there's blood on the chopping block where they're about to cut its head off. I mean, that's why I liked it, because it was actually like a proper fancy story. And it's clear it is still for kids, right? But it was darker and more interesting.
100%. It was still for kids, but it's definitely more onto the dark side of it. Even the castle when you see it, which is so cool. It's very, I don't know, gothic is maybe not the right word.
No, it's like a proper medieval castle, isn't it? And I think the fact that it's...
It definitely reflects the Horned Kingdom, essentially his army. It's very decayed, dilapidated. It's...
There's a lot
of essence of a castle. It's so creepy.
The artwork's really nice. A lot of the backgrounds are like watercolor paintings, I think.
I did put that they were very aesthetically pleasing. When you see a background of the castle, especially when like the lightning hits, everything else is still and it's just that lightning flash. It really sets the scene, and automatically I was like, oh gosh, what is going to happen? Please tell me the pig is okay.
The pig's really cute as well. I forgot how cute Henwing is. Like, she's a little cute pig with long eyelashes.
Let's talk about cute characters, because first you've got the pig. Is it Henwin?
Henwin? I think this is the thing. I've watched this film so many times and I can never remember the names of the characters. I was calling Tarwin. It's Taran.
Taran.
And I thought it was Princess Alon Win. It's Princess Alon Wee, I think. And I've been calling him Luda, not Fluda. I can never quite remember their names.
The pig automatically is adorable and has its own like sassy attitude, which I love.
She's cute, and she's got long eyelashes. And
it feels like even though she doesn't talk, I feel like I know what she's saying.
She's got a character a bit like Elasteb and Upper and Momo, and a bit like Gromit and Wallace and Gromit. They've done a good job of giving her personality.
And then once the pig gets lost, we bump into Gurgi. Oh my gosh.
Gurgi is the best comic relief character in a Disney
Gurgi is the
film.
cutest, but I'm also like, what is it?
I often wonder this, because he kind of looks like a little old man, because he's got like a
He's
mustache.
like a bear man thing, but I don't think Disney ever tell you what he is, and I'm just like, what is it?
I've always interpreted him as just some sort of woodland creature that, English folklore has a lot of. But also I kind of think he's just like a good Gollum. Can you see the way the voice is
this
like...
totally goes with my whole thing of anything cute is adorable.
Yeah. Everything cute is adorable. You mean small?
Anything small is adorable. Well, just adorable. And I think my favourite line, which I don't think children would get, but we absolutely wet ourselves at, is when Fluda, Gurgi meets him for the first time and is like, oh, I want your hat, I want your...
Well,
what is it?
Yeah, like he starts stealing his harp and his little lyre thing and his hat, and he just takes the hat off him.
And he's like, Gurgi want this, Gurgi want this, and he's just like, take it, I'm sure you've murdered for less.
Yeah, I wouldn't have noticed that line as a kid, but the fact that Fluda's just a coward, I'm sure you've murdered for less. Just assuming this little fluffy creature's going to kill him. Yeah. He's a bit like sort of Ewok or something, but the way he serves the narrative, though, is he is a bit like a good guy Gollum. Like he sort of leads them. He's like a little guide that leads them to the pig.
Oh, he's so cute.
And yeah, he's a really cute.
He gets braver as well. He starts off as an absolute wimp. Like the moment he's like, I'm going to the castle, he's like, bye bye, and literally legs it with an apple. And then he gets braver.
He does. He has without spoiling it, he has a proper moment at the end that's really, really good.
I mean,
and it's really sad. I think you'll tear up at the end.
Oh no, tell me Gurgi's okay. I mean, I think this does lead us on nicely to, is it Creeper? And I think the ultimate question, if I had nothing else in this podcast, is Creeper, cute or ugly?
So Creeper's a little goblin. He's just a goblin with one like big eye.
I will post a picture on our Instagram and you can let us know if he's cute or ugly.
Oh, speaking of pictures, so I was Googling this film, like looking at the wiki and stuff before we started doing this, and there's a poster for this film. And I said it reminds me a bit of Star Wars. It looks like a Star Wars poster. Yeah. It's got like the Horned King in the background, a bit like Darth Vader, like looming over everyone. It's got Taran in the front holding a sword, a bit like a lightsaber. It's such a cool poster, and I was like, I'm such a little like the inner nerd, yeah. And well, he's more like the inner kid, like loving his fantasies coming out, because that was my real proper introduction to high fantasy.
Yeah, so yeah, I like Creeper. I think he's kind of cute, but also ugly, but I very much feel sorry for him because he's in a very much abusive relationship with his king. He's constantly being strangled, and I just kind of feel like I want him to have some kind of redemption where he gets to leave.
I mean, you can't really, like, is he evil or is he just doing the bidding of the evil Horned King?
Is he evil or is he just a bit like Peter Pettigrew in Harry Potter, where he's just a bit too scared and so goes to the more powerful creepy dude?
I mean, I think it's probably it's also he's just a little goblin. What's he got going on?
I don't know.
I kind of think he's Gurgi, but for the bad guys.
He is Gurgi for the bad guys. I also love the orb. I want it. Where do I get one?
Oh yeah, the Princess Alongwy.
Yeah.
The way they say her name every time.
We'll go on to Princess Alongwy, but the little orb that like changes colour and chases rats, and it's like her thing.
Everyone sort of has a little device in this, like. Princess Alongwy has her orb that like zooms about and seeks things. Yeah. Fluda has his harp,
which breaks when he lies.
Yeah,
the strings break when he basically tells an elusive lie.
And Taran has his sword that's magical. He's basically got Excalibur. He finds it in the course of the adventure, and the sword basically does all the fighting. So
yeah, let's talk about the characters, because I've established that, is it Tarwin?
Taran, I think is his name. Yeah.
Is essentially just you.
What? I'm not an assistant pig keeper who fumbles and stumbles around.
Well, you do fumble and stumble through life. He's short, he's ginger.
Short?
He stumbles about.
You're not selling me at all.
I'm not at all. And yeah, I like him because he's so brave. He's like, when will I get to be a knight? And I feel like that's just you. Well, when do you become a Jedi?
He's basically, he's classic boy that just lusts after this one cool thing.
That is you. He's just boy.
Just boy, default character. In the custom creator screen, just don't change anything.
Yeah.
No, but he just wants to be a knight. Like, he just wants to be famous. He just wants to be cool. He just wants the thing that all boys want. like to look like the cool knight and get all the ladies and have the big sword.
But also,
and,
his sword, I feel, is overpowered as hell. Like, it does all the work for him. There's no skill involved.
No, and Princess Alonwe points that out.
Well, this is just it. The one quote I wrote was her being like, he was like, oh yeah, I got us out of that dangerous situation. She's like, no, you didn't. It was your sword. And he literally snaps and goes, what do girls know about swords anyway? And then she completely roasts him and is like, well, without me, you'd still be crying in a dungeon, you little dweeb. So
she does absolutely wreck him. It's good.
So I can probably understand why maybe some girls didn't like it, because I hate the princess in it. Princess Alonwe, from the moment you
strong,
hear her.
actually.
She's a strong character. I'm not a fan. I'm sorry, whoever the voice actress is.
Yeah, I don't think she's very good at all.
But like from the moment she enters, she's like, oh, I thought I heard something in here. I'm like, all right, can you just...
You could tell
I think
the
maybe
direction...
she's too flouncy for me.
Yeah, you could tell the direction they got given was like, be very English, or probably an American like, be very British, be as bloody British as you could possibly be, and just say one all the time, because that makes you sound posh like the Queen. I think that was probably the direction she got given. So she's always like, one is awfully lost and terrified of rats jumping out at one. Oh,
I mean, give me a Topher Katara any day over Alonwe, because she's not a character I would at all look up to. She's like, she's the only female character we see, apart from the little fairies, who aren't really in it. I suppose we have the Three Witches, which we just got into.
I mean, I was going to say, I thought before we sort of rewatched this, in my head, she was just default princess in peril, but she isn't really. Like, I mean, she does have a lot more personality, and not just that, she doesn't need his help. Like, she's not slave to Tara, and she doesn't think that he's come to rescue. She rescues him from his prison cell.
Yes, she
does. She's got a lot of like determination to her own thing. I don't think she is.
I think she just annoys me as a character. I think it's because
you just don't like her voice.
Yeah, I don't like her voice. But I also think like she is quite a strong female character. I think I've just watched a lot of shows where we've had a lot stronger female characters, and now nothing else lives up for me.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to bear in mind this was made in '85. It is quite an old. An old thing, and I do think it plays into a lot of the... I took some notes, actually, which I don't normally do, but I didn't realise, as an introduction to fantasy, I think this is probably one of the reasons I'm always so critical of other fantasy for being unimaginative, because there's so much in this film.
There really is.
It's really creative, and a lot of things I'm looking at now, like modern media, I think, hang on, like that was in the Black Cauldron. Like, for example... in Game of Thrones, to be fair, I don't actually know when George R. R. Martin would have written the original books, but you know when Bran is warging into the past, and the Night King like looks at him and notices him.
Creepy moment.
Yeah, and the using the power of the visions and then being interrupted by the baddie. It's in Star Wars as well. It's in The Last Jedi when Rey's having that like vision with Kylo Ren.
Oh, is that when he like touches her?
Yeah, exactly. And that sort of happens in this when Henwin, the pig, uses her vision powers. And they see stuff, and then the Horned King knows that they've done it, and knows about her.
That's very spooky.
So it's actually that's kind of in modern media as well.
Have you got another example? Because it did seem there was a lot.
The summoning of the Army of the Dead is quite similar to Thor Ragnarok. You know, when his sister goes and slams the fire into and it's also like using a flame to summon the dead, because the Black Cauldron sort of has this greenish flame, which is really Thor Ragnarok is quite reminiscent of that Black Cauldron power. Oh, and the little orb that Alonwe has reminds me of Navi from the Zelda games. There's all this like stuff they either pulled together or were the first on, because like I said, this is quite old. And I do think that, it's very creative. There's just a lot of stuff in it that I think... The like even the designs of the dragons, they don't look derivative, they look really unique.
Yeah.
And the Horned King himself.
Oh gosh, the Horned King himself.
Talk about him,
yeah. Well, let's quickly talk about him, because he is the creepiest Disney villain I have ever seen. Like, he's very detailed.
He's properly just a skeleton, man.
He is properly just a skeleton with horns, but like bright red eyes. And I could see him being quite scary as a very young child.
Yeah, I mean, I never remember being like spooked out by it, but there's a scene at the end of the film, which I don't think really spoils it. Obviously, they beat the big bad, but he gets killed and his flesh actually gets like ripped from his body.
Oh my gosh,
and
that
he
sounds
gets, like,
really vivid.
Sucked into this thing, and it's really it is really vivid. And it's like all this flashing stuff, and you can see like he's already like skeletal anyway, but he's getting like even more skeletal, like shuddering as he gets sucked into this vortex.
Oh my gosh.
And it's Yeah, for a kid's thing, I just thought it was cool as a kid. So, like, you enjoyed it then? I kind of want to get a feel for, you've talked a bit about the stuff that happens in it, but what did you actually think of it?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. I kind of wanted to know what was happening next. It really grasped me from the start, as I say, in that dark scene, because you see the classic, which is the Disney castle fairy going over it, and you're like, oh yes, the classic Disney film. But then it doesn't open with a song, and it doesn't open with a bright scene. It's very dark and like dirty, and that's so different for Disney. I can see why maybe it didn't go off as well as they may have wanted to, because it was a risk, and it's not the classic Disney you expect.
For me, this film is there, and there is a lot of history to it. I think it did almost like ruin Disney basically, because it wasn't popular. It didn't do well. It didn't review well either. I think it's got bad reviews, and I really don't understand the bad reviews. I think that's people that, well, maybe it's people looking for a certain thing, but I could see how adult reviewers would go, oh, this is a bit much for kids, or not understanding why children would like it, or who the group of children that would think this is the best Disney film.
Yeah.
And I think I sort of feel sorry for whoever was involved that might have got in trouble, because I think they probably took a lot of risks, and had this gone well, they would be praised as one of the like best people because they took a lot of risks and it paid off. But as it happened, the risks, didn't pay off. But can you understand why I thought this, especially as like 7-year-old Mike, was
it's
like,
totally your kind of film, because it is a lot of what you read and what you watch is this high fantasy, high action, I suppose kind of medieval knights with magic. As you say, essentially Star Wars, but not in space, is what you love.
Yeah.
Which is why you love Star Wars.
It's got a lot of the parallels of Star Wars, like a young boy on a farm, he gets his magic sword, he's sort of got an older mentor.
This is why
there's an evil big bad. I mean, I know Star Wars is just a collection of tropes, but this sort of has a lot of similarities in the way the beats are structured, I think, in some respects anyway. I think it's a really cool film, and I want people to understand, or I want you to understand, like, why I really liked it.
I think I understand why you really like it. I can see young Mike now really enjoying watching it, because
be like, xiao, xiao.
pretending.
Yeah, pretending I've got the big old sword.
Yeah, I did love it. But do you want to move on to...
Yeah, talking about the big sword. Let's talk about your big sword.
I admit it, I think there is a parallel with this and my film, The Magic Sword Quest for Camelot, because there is a sword.
Magic Sword Quest for Camelot.
There is a sword. I think your sword is more overpowered than my sword. I'm just going to put that out there. But they are essentially the same thing. Like, the hero needs the magic sword, like in Zelda. You have to get your magic sword to be able to defeat Ganon.
Yeah, obviously.
And this feels like that. Like, he kind of just picks up... I felt like there maybe should have been more of a moment when he found the sword. But anywho, moving on to yours and the Quest for Camelot, which is essentially where they lose Excalibur. And then they're on a quest to find it, to return it to the king so he can bring peace to Camelot. What did you think?
So, do you know what? It felt to me, as a sort of an overall review, I felt like it was an alright film, or maybe verging on a bad film, that had the potential to be much better, but absolutely squandered it. And I don't know if that was... I could see, like, potentially committee room thinking ruining it. Do you know what? I think for me, actually, this film is everything the Black Cauldron isn't.
Right.
And those are the things I don't like about it. Like, it's taken a lot of the same ideas as the Black Cauldron. It's got a lot of the same, like, narrative elements. But for me, it does it all wrong. Like, I think the songs feel really unnecessary. This is like a sort of musical, but there aren't that many songs.
No, I suppose that they are quite sparse at times. I think there's maybe... 4 or 5 is still quite a lot, I suppose, in an hour and a half.
But that's what I mean. I definitely think you could cut the songs out and it would totally make sense, which is my criticism of musicals, right?
Yeah,
it's like, you need the songs? I don't think you need the songs in this. I mean, to be fair, this is like, it's got the same thing of there's a bad guy that's just evil right from the start. Also, I've noted only evil people have bad nails. There's a lot of close-ups on his really rank fingernails, and you know he's evil. Like before,
also, he's wearing red. Classic evil trope, apparently.
And he's got red hair.
A
lot of gingers kicking around in medieval
when you're
times.
Older.
Well, he's like bald on top with long hair at the back.
Yeah, he's called Ruba.
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 That doesn't sound evil, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too evil.
I kept thinking he was
your...
going to be called Mordred.
What are your thoughts on the bad guys in general? Because obviously he kind of uses a magic potion and turns them like that, like half metal. They kind of merge.
Yeah, so
with
his whole plan is that there's a magic sword Excalibur that King Arthur has, and King Arthur, is king and everyone loves him. He's really popular.
Yeah,
and Ruba believes that only the sword is keeping him as king, and he wants to be king for no particular reason. He's just an arrogant jerk.
He wants more land.
Yeah, he just wants to be king. Just wants the power. And he gets this magic potion that allows people to combine with weapons. So he does it to all his little follower guys and combines them with like an axe or something, and then they become these big metal axe dudes, which is kind of a cool concept. And his plan, I actually think, is quite clever, that he wants to use the potion on himself with Excalibur so that no one can ever take Excalibur away from him, which I think is quite like stupid evil clever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that. Like, in theory, would work great. In actual
do you really want to replace your right hand with a sword?
Maybe no. On the bright side, never need a knife again.
Yeah, there's some things you might want to do with your right hand, though, that you can't do with a sword, Just saying,
no,
I'm just saying.
No, I've never had that issue.
No,
I'm ambidextrous. So tell me let's talk about the main characters if you
So
we have Kaylee, who is her father was one of the Knights of Camelot and was killed by Ruba. And she goes on the quest to find Excalibur and bumps into Garrett, who is blind and lives in the middle of this creepy forbidden forest with Aidan, the Silverwind Falcon.
The Falcon's pretty cool. I quite like the idea of this blind dude that sees by his falcon. I think that's really clever. It sort of cheaps while so that he knows where to go or what to do. And that's quite cool. I think he's quite a cool character. Yeah. I just think, to be honest with you, she's really bland. She's so bland. There's nothing to her. The main character, the girl whose dad was a knight and she really wants to be a knight, yeah. And I think they try their best to be like, oh, she wants to be a knight, great, she can be a knight. And then at the end she gets the guy and gets married and stuff, but also becomes a knight as well. So they try and do all of that. By the way, I watched this film to the end, so I've already seen it all, because it wasn't that long, and I thought there was no point just stopping with half an hour left, whereas the Black Cauldron's quite a bit longer.
Yeah, the Black Cauldron's just solid 2 hours, whereas this is only about an hour and 20, so you were more or less at the end.
Yeah,
really.
I thought I may as well see it through anyway, so I can let you know whether it was worth it or not. But I hadn't read my note. I've put main girl is the worst person, blind guy is cool. She's just not a nice person. I don't think she's a likable character. She's just irritating, and she keeps fumbling stuff, making the blind guy's life really difficult. Just stumbles into him, forces him on this quest, and then keeps kicking over plants that fly into his face. And I also just, when she started singing, I was like, oh, I'm zoning out. I don't need a song here. Hurry up, please.
I mean, some of the songs are quite cool. The Two-Headed Dragon, which is obviously, I suppose, the comedy relief character. I mean, your show had 2 anyway. Mine's just 2 merged into 1.
Yeah, which again, I just don't think he was funny. Or no, they have another attempt at a comic relief character. They've got a chicken that gets merged with an axe. In principle, I actually think the chicken could have been quite funny, and there was some funny moments with the chicken as his wife, I think, a female chicken that's really buff, and he keeps flirting. The male chicken, the cockerel, keeps flirting with other chickens, and this big buff hen keeps coming over and be like and stopping him doing it, which that's top tier kids comedy. But then he gets combined with an axe, and for some reason he can talk now, and he's sort of a bit of a comedy character, but he doesn't get enough screen time to get fleshed out and understood. I actually think that's a big problem with this film, that nobody gets much screen time. There's a lot of disparate characters.
I think they're too busy on the storyline that it's not character driven, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I do think it suffers for that. I just kind of think the main character, I've forgotten her name, Kaylee, is just bland, and she doesn't do it. She's not interesting in any way, and she doesn't get much that much attention to herself anyway to have any dilemmas about herself. Her dilemma is just, I want to be a warrior. My mum says no, but then I go and do it anyway.
Isn't that just any story? That was literally the Black Cauldron. Pig boy wants to be hero. Pigman says no, he goes and does it anyway.
He doesn't go and do it anyway. He stumbles into it by accident. He gets then rescued by a princess. He finds a magic sword. Like, there's a lot of steps along the way to him becoming... And also, he isn't the hero by virtue of the fact that he suddenly becomes good with a sword. He's the hero because he's courageous and rescues his friends. And also, he's not really the hero at the end. Like, if you watch it all the way through, you'll find out, like... The person that displays the most heroics and saves the day isn't Taran, you know?
Well, yeah.
He's this is what I mean. There's more nuance.
But, like, what did you think of the storyline? Because obviously Excalibur gets lost because it's stolen by a griffin. I know how much you like the mystical characters and whatnot.
Yeah, I actually think there's some cool ideas in this film. I don't think it's all bad.
Yeah.
I think maybe because I'm comparing it to The Black Cauldron, which I think is a much better film. I'm being harsh on it. But... it's a little untapped gem. Like, I've never heard of this film. I can't believe you just, like, rooted it out of nowhere.
I mean, I watched this a lot when I was a kid.
Really?
Me and my brother loved this film.
Literally never heard of it.
Used to love it
I'd be
so
really
much.
curious to know if anyone's heard of it. Like, yeah, tweet at us
tweet us. It's Trust Me It's Worth It podcast.
Yeah, let us know if you've heard of the Magic Sword Quest for Camelot.
Yeah, would be great to know.
Don't forget this sub Quest for Camelot, because we might be confused with a different Magic Sword film. Some cool bits in it. The weirdest thing... I'm trying to think story-wise, like what actually happens. The sword gets lost in a forest, they go off to get it, she finds the blind guy, they have a bit of an adventure. You know, it's okay, it's standard stuff. There's a scene with an ogre in it, which is a fine scene.
Where he seems to have found the sword and is using it as a toothpick.
Yeah, which is totally fine, but it's the ogre is 3D animated for some reason, and I feel like this is one of these examples where... they were fiddling around with 3D animation. It was probably new at the time, right?
Yeah.
And they thought, this is a really cool way of animating stuff. It looks horrid. It looks really bad.
It looks very video game, I feel, but like old video game.
Yeah, exactly. And if people don't really know the difference between 3D and 2D, it's probably worth just looking at this scene because it's very obvious that he's animated differently. Like 3D animation... is being used more and more in Japanese anime because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And you can render stuff in 3D and like move their limbs, and you can have like skeletons that you map, like wireframes, so you don't have to individually draw panels. But most people think that individually drawn panels, although time-consuming, looks a lot better, or using like the old cell techniques and stuff. So I do think the 3D is like weirdly jarring.
I suppose because it's just that scene as
well.
It
it's
feels
really
like they tested it out, and we're like, yeah, it works in that scene, but no other.
Yeah, it feels quite out of place to me. But then again, like I say, I sometimes that's a bit of a nitpick about the animation stuff.
I suppose, you know, what to remember with this film, it is very much a child's film, and quite, you know, somewhat a young child's film, because I know a lot of the things you had issue with was them essentially stating what they are doing. And I know we don't like the whole, I mean, I agree that, you know, you shouldn't talk down to children, but I think in some effects, because it is somewhat a complex storyline in itself, I think occasionally you need that, because otherwise children might not find it interesting because they're not following. Yeah,
maybe, but I've always been of the opinion, and I think you know this, that I don't think you should you shouldn't degrade the vocabulary too much, or alter the way people behave or characters act, or things people say for kids stuff, because I do just think kids are smarter than people give them credit for.
Oh, yeah.
Or some of them are, and then those ones will appreciate it a lot more. Like Black Cauldron, I noticed the Horned King says, like, "Are you the owner of this ocular pig?" I think that's what he says.
Yeah.
But like he's using the word ocular to mean it's related to visions. Like no kid's gonna know what that is. But I don't think it matters. Like the child will understand the scene still, and if they do get the word and they learn a new word, I think that's a great thing. Whereas I think this is, do you know what? It's not even dumbed down. I think there's bits in it as well. They try to do that. Like there's the double-headed dragon. I feel like is there for adult comedy relief. You know how a lot of characters in Disney films and things will be there with a joke, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The adults will get this one. And it's just references to stuff that kids won't get, but it isn't funny. I don't know, maybe it was funny at the time. I didn't find them funny. I think they made a couple of like celebrity references.
They probably did.
You know when someone makes a celebrity reference to someone you've never heard of, like, remember when Joanne Keating did the old with Professor Arnold Tamzadoo? And you're like, no, I don't remember any of those people. I don't know who they are. It doesn't mean anything, and it wouldn't really be funny anyway. You're just trying to like insert stand-up comedy into a movie, which I don't think works that well. Yeah, I've put here double-headed dragon seems to be there, just to add references in that the kids won't get, but they're just not funny.
I do like the double-headed dragon, though. I think it's cute. Like, they have a nice story arc. They literally hate being together, and then by the end they learn the only way they can fly is agreeing.
Yeah, I don't mind that as an idea, and I think it's okay. I just don't think they give it much breathing room.
Okay.
Like, by the time they sort of like, oh, we're finally accepting each other, I'm like, oh, well, is that really an issue for them? I don't know, it felt a bit
yeah, I think what I'm hearing is
rushed.
maybe the film was trying to put too much in a short space of time, essentially. It tried to do too much in the time it was given.
Yeah, and I think maybe the songs are part of the problem there, because like you dedicate so much time to a song that then could have just been other stuff happening and us seeing the characters interact in different ways. I think, I want to say some good stuff about it, because I do think the villain's like evil power, the way his potion merges his warriors, is quite a cool idea. I think he's quite genuinely like a threatening villain. Like he's a bit like he killed her husband, by the way, and he comes in, he's like, "Oh, hello there," which is pretty creepy and pretty villainous. So I do think he makes for like a nice villain. And I also think the sort of moral with the dad that dies protecting his king, and the daughter wanting to live up to him. I think that's an interesting idea, that she wants to just live up to her father, but now he's gone.
Yeah.
And there is also a bit of a cool parallel where the blind guy, he is also sort of enamoured by the dad, because when he originally became blind, he thought his life was over and he'd never amount to anything, never be a knight.
Yeah.
And her dad was the one that encouraged him to still like learn to be, uphold the morals of being a knight, and it's not about physically being able to fight, it's about your sort of chivalry, etc., which I don't think are bad morals to take.
Not
Like,
at
I
all.
think those are good life lessons, good stuff to teach kids. Like, you can be the good knight without being good with big sword, if you see what I mean, which is a nice thing to say. And, it wraps up in a nice way as well. I think it's got a nice happy ending. Yeah, maybe it's... I've just got it in my head now and comparing it to Black Cauldron.
Yeah, okay, so bottom line, do you think it was worth it? Do you think it's a good film? Or maybe those are two separate questions and I should just ask you if you think it's worth it?
I'm gonna have to say no, actually. I don't think it's worth it, because I think it's a bit of a like lost gem, and I think maybe if you've got kids or you've got a niece or nephew that's looking for something a bit different, and especially maybe if they're into that sort of like fancy stuff, it would be a good one to show them.
I think had you watched it as a child, you would love it a lot more.
Yeah,
now.
I don't have any nostalgia for it. I think that might
so
be
much nostalgia. Maybe that's why I'm a bit forgiving of the fact that, it has its issues, but I used to watch it a lot when I was a child, and I loved it then, and I still love it now.
I can totally see why you'd love it, actually. Like, it's not a terrible film. It's quite cool. Like I say, the baddie and his sword is quite a cool premise, and the griffin's quite cool in it, to be fair. That's a cool addition. I just think as a kid you quite like looking at some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But watching it now, I can't see myself ever wanting to go back and rewatch it, or particularly recommending it to anyone. I think that's the main thing. I wouldn't recommend it to people. I wouldn't say, hey, this is this lost childhood film, like this gem that you don't know about, go and check it out. I probably wouldn't say that, but as I say, maybe for kids,
I'll take that. I'll take that. I thought it might be a bit of a stretch with you and your fantasy ways, but that's fine.
Yeah, again, the genre, actually, to be fair, that swung me probably a lot of positive points. I do really like the medieval knights swinging about their swords and stuff. That's the problem. There wasn't enough of that. There wasn't enough sword swinging. There wasn't enough phallic imagery for me. Yeah, sorry. Getting back to topic. What did you think about Black Cauldron then? Do you think that was worth it?
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it. I really do think it's worth it. I think it's a great kids film. I think adults would love it as well. I would definitely watch it with my niece, who is 5. I'm not sure. I mean, she's a bit.
Do you think it'd be too spooky for
I
them?
think she might be. I think she's a bit. Maybe it's a bit big. Maybe she's a bit young for it, but she's a bit of a scaredy cat anyway. But I thought it was really good. I wanted to know what happened. I was intrigued by the characters. Some of the characters annoyed me. I feel like Flood or whatever his name is unnecessary. You could take him out and the ending would still be the same.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, yeah. I think he might be the equivalent of he's there for the adults.
I suppose. And I kind of...
Because there's a bit of a scene later where there's a witch who's like really in love with him and just keeps smothering him in her breasts in her oversized bosom.
So yeah, I'd have to say yes. I think you've won this week,
awesome.
Straight out. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that, because I think this is kind of Black Cauldron's kind of a hard sell in many respects, because it's not a typical, Disney film. It's not it is kind of a fun romp, but it is also just dark, and for me, it's what I would have wanted, The Hobbit, if they'd animate, there is an animated Hobbit, and it's not very good. But for me, that's, what people should be talking about when they talk about, great fantasy stories. I actually kind of think this one, although it's got the silly kiddie tropes in it, and I think the bit with the fairies is a bit long-winded.
Yeah.
And I think maybe they could cut some pieces here and there, and the voice acting's not great. I'm not going to say it's amazing, but in terms of the ideas in it, and as a fantasy story, I think it's absolutely top-notch. And as a kids one, what else is there for kids like this? Other than Magic Sword.
I don't know, we might not have seen it yet. Well, I think that's it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. And as I say, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us a rating. Follow us on Twitter. Again, it's at Trust Me It's Worth It podcast. And on Instagram, which is exactly the same. And we'll be back again next week, because trust me, it's worth it.
Emily, will I be allowed to tweet the tweets?
No.
No, okay, I didn't think so.
Trust Me It's Worth It is produced and edited by Emily Giles and co-hosted by Michael Griffith Dixon.